This is Don Goldberg for TechView, and our guest today is our own Dr. Ron Faucheux, head of Qorvis Research. And Ron, thank you for being here. You just finished a survey we did on behalf of Google and their federal efforts on attitudes of voters toward ways you can trim government and sort of wasting government. Why don't you tell us what that was all about and what you found?
Well, it was a really interesting survey because, first of all, we found that that voters across the country do think that there's a lot of waste in government, and there's nothing surprising necessarily about that. But I think probably the biggest finding in the survey was 92% of voters across the nation do believe that by using new technologies, you can cut out government waste, cut out unnecessary spending, and make government agencies more efficient. And that was a really big finding because people do see the use of new technologies as not just a way to make things more efficient, but also to make things less costly in terms of government. And you know, it stands to reason because people think that in their daily lives and the way businesses operate. So the fact that it also applies to government, I think is an important message for government officials at the local and state level. We also found, for example, that 78% of the voters across the country think that political candidates for state and local office should be very specific in their ideas on how to cut out unnecessary government overhead and how to make government employees and agencies more efficient and productive. So clearly voters are looking for solutions to deal with government spending and to lower government spending without cutting out some of the services that they want.
So here we are going into an election year where there's going to be, forget the federal races, there'll be lots of state and local municipality races. Lots of budgets are really stretched thin if they're not really looking for ways to cut. What's the lesson for candidates at the state and local level who may want to use that as part of their platform?
Well, I think there's a big lesson for candidates. I think what voters are looking for is credibility and information and specificity. You know, anybody can stand up and say, well, I'm going to cut government spending, or I'm going to cut government waste. People have been saying that for years. But to be very specific and to say, you know, here's 3 things I'm going to do from day one. You know, I'm going to make this more efficient, I'm going to make that more efficient, I'm going to use technology to accomplish this, I'm going to use technology to accomplish that, and here's case studies and here's some background, and it shows that we can, you know, for example, the idea of technology in the email systems, you know, that can cut costs significantly. You know, something like that is an opportunity for candidates to be very specific about. So when voters say, what are you going to do about wasteful spending and what are you going to cut, instead of just you know, dealing with generalities, I think the specificity is what gives credibility.
Now, for example, City of Los Angeles has moved to Google Apps, which is the Google Cloud email, as well as other applications where they can take the servers and the costs outside of the city sort of back room and sort of, you know, outsource that to Google. Is there a comfort level with voters that that's okay to do, or there's still some apprehension?
There seems to be a significant comfort there. The survey, of course, we did was commissioned by Google, and so we specifically asked about the situation in some of the markets that they've been dealing with in Los Angeles and Orlando, for example. And we found that well over 72% of the voters thought that it was a good idea to do that. And so no matter how you cut it, voters believe that, you know, there's a big problem in terms of cutting out government waste, that new technologies can be a big part of that solution, and in some ways a win-win solution, because it's not necessarily cutting out services that people want to do. And at the same time, they're looking for leadership from elected officials and political candidates to say specifically how they will apply some of these things.
So clearly, as you said over, specifics is key here for anybody who wants to sort of push this forward. Well, this is interesting, and we know that more about the information is available on the Qorvis website. But thanks for being here, and we look forward to seeing how this plays out.
Well, thank you.
I'm Don Goldberg for TechView.